Hi, I'm Scott Forcino from PrimeRealEstate.pro. I have Christine Smith, who's the Real Brokerage. I have Victoria Rivadeneira, a Real Estate Top Pro, and Sophie, our capable assistant administrator. So we're talking to Christine, who is a real advocate and a professional using the buyer agency agreement. And I'm going to tell you why I don't use that term anymore. I call it the compensation contract because that's what it is. And I want to see, we have a bunch of questions, some easy softballs for Christine to hit out of the park. How are you, Christine?
Great. How are you today, Scott?
Great. I wanted to hear, we talked a second offline of all this hubbub and all the different organizations throwing their opinions around. So you said you're in a day-to-day real estate practice, so you may not be hearing it, but what do you know?
It's just been a lot of noise on social media. And I think for the average agent, it's very easy to get sucked into like fear mongering rhetoric. And I've kind of tuned out a lot of the social media. I'm just seeing a lot of ambulance chasers on the topic. And while I think it's important for us to stay updated on the topic and how things are progressing, I think it's really important for us to be incredibly picky about where we're getting our information from. And even like having a mindset in advance on how we're going to like choose to receive the information.
I like that.
When me and my team are talking about this, we're listening for opportunities to like service buyers better. We're not allowing fear-based conversations in our conversations as a team as it pertains to this topic. It's just
fear comes from ignorance. Sophie, could you let Victoria in, please? She's texting in. That comes from ignorance. If you're unaware of the information, let's for 1 minute say this. Realtors were not federal court practitioners. So this did catch everyone by surprise. You didn't talk about it, and then you talked about it. So you're hearing, my problem is I think there's some lack of understanding, of course, by the real estate community. And you also have, I think, some purposeful misinformation by people who could or should NAR executives. Yeah. I don't believe for a minute that they're not being advised of the lawyers who certainly know what's going on. So there's the purposeful misdirection. Victoria is back here. Hi, Christine. Hi, Victoria.
Hi.
Hi.
So it's really hard for practitioners to know what to do. Where our own leadership is given wrong information, and it's really incumbent upon professionals to provide information. And you made up the term, what's the term? Prove your competency. I like that very much. Yeah. So let us know. We have a bunch of questions. And Sophie, can you kind of repeat the questions? This is kind of the day-to-day what Christine does. So Sophie, you have them in front of you?
Yes. Actually, the questions are in the chat.
Before we get started, though, can I ask you, Christine, what are you hearing out there? You're doing this every day. You're teaching. What are the challenges that you're facing with getting everyone to get the proper information?
People to get proper information, as in agents, to get proper information on how to do business the right way moving forward?
Correct.
Yep. So I am, raising my hand as kind of their leader, and I'm offering some discernment. I feel like I have been in the real estate industry long enough, and I've really studied, who it's worthwhile to tune into and listen to their advice, and some sources that are just noise. So I'm helping my team and other agent friends of mine with some discernment, right? And I'm encouraging them to be very picky about where they're getting information from. And also limiting time on social media by consuming just the rhetoric that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
So you think that that's the biggest challenge is having them on social media, listening to what's going on out there, because I'm sure that they're relaying that to you and possibly even challenging what you're saying. Is that correct?
I think Victoria means our prospects, buyers, clients believing the media hype and giving you some incorrect grasp, and you have to correct that information.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I have seen a lot of real estate agents making posts about this on their social profiles, from a fear-based mindset, from a not fully educated mindset, them interpreting how compensation worked incorrectly, like from the beginning, right? And it's really interesting to see like their clients interacting with that. I think that we have to be careful about what we put on our social media, because most of us do have a mix of followers that our friends, family, previous clients, current clients, and we need to make sure that we are kind of controlling the narrative so that misinformation doesn't get like I really think that there's a limited place for opinions and more of a place for facts. And I think that these conversations with our current clients, our friends, and our family, if this is something that's on their mind, it's more of a one-to-one conversation, not like a broadcast your opinion type conversation. And, my team, we have a private chat, a WhatsApp chat, and they screenshot things to me all day. Little things that they're seeing.
I do that too.
And
Victoria does that.
Can't imagine
sometimes,
that.
We're laughing nervously. Other times I'm like, yeah, that's a legit point,
Or you're cringing too.
A lot of cringing for sure.
Mm-hmm. What I'm shocked is some of these people, besides, my rally cry is AYB, ask your broker, they're asking Facebook. They also are outright threatening or conducting steering without knowing it. They're also making demands which are no longer possible. So it's gonna. I think the cream will rise to the top. I think it's getting easier and easier for someone like yourself to conduct your business and to train others how to do this.
Scott, we're just busy like showing houses and writing offers. We don't really have a lot of time for participating in the rhetoric. We know that there's a place to make sure that we're fully mastering buyer presentation and that we are really putting somebody through our process, and to make sure that they're understanding all of the transparency pieces. So I feel like this has been a really great thing for my team, for us to just level up.
And what happens in a case where people say, can I meet you in the house at 11 o'clock? I mean, and they want to do what they do with other agents. How do you handle someone who's really just not understanding the need for the presentation and consultation?
So I think every real estate professional takes a different policy on how they handle what I call go shows, right? I used to run a Zillow Flex team. So our policy is, of course, after some questions looking for red flags, we will show property. We will actually have a couple of other properties lined up to show them. It's really hard to tell somebody they have to make a financial commitment with you before you've ever built up any rapport. And if you have the opportunity to land a first appointment where you can exchange physical professional energy, right, you have the opportunity to back them into a proper consultation where you are walking them through what it takes to buy a home in this market, and you are presenting them with all of the transparency stuff. So we do not continue to show homes, right, without buyer broker agreements, but we will show property one round. You get like a freebie round, but then we're insisting that they move through our process.
I see. And I'm sure you know that in mid-July, you won't get that freebie anymore.
And, we're in a changing market, so I think that we will adapt. And it would actually be great if we were able to say that, per broker policy, it's against the law, whatever language we need to use, we need to start with this meeting and then walk them through if they want us to be their agent of choice.
I think it's a great approach. I think so many companies and broker owners are going to be totally unprepared when that requirement hits. And keep in mind, I don't know if this is a perspective of mine, that whatever settlement terms you may have read, this is the best case scenario. I've come across lenders and some office meetings where they said, well, it's not approved yet. And it's not. But this is the best. I think if the Department of Justice and the court itself doesn't approve these proposed settlements, I think it can get far worse. I think the requirement to offer buyer agency agreement every buyer is going to stay, but other things could get worse. So if I could, Sophie's going to just rattle off some questions, and Sophie, would you start?
So the softballs are over. Is that what you're telling me?
No, the softballs are coming.
Okay, great.
Sophie, can you read them off?
Yes, of course. I left them in the chat for you.
I can't
So
read
the
them.
first,
Too hard to read.
It's okay. So the first question is, in the past, before the proposed settlement, why does she get compensation contract signed?
Well, yeah, why did you? For the reasons you may have mentioned, or can you touch on that?
You know, I just had the benefit of being put in front of really great real estate professional people that seen this coming years in advance. And I was taught a long time ago that we should not let a seller or a listing dictate what our professional fee or what our worth is. And that we needed to establish that with our client in advance, because it's very possible that the other side could be offering nothing at all or significantly less than what our personal standard is. Standard.
I like that. That answers the question. Sophie, some more, please.
Yes. The next one is, how do you relate the tasks that you will perform to your professional fee?
Right. The things you'll do, how are the tasks you'll perform, or how are they related to the fees? What's the connection? What's the nexus between what you do and what you receive?
So Scott, you had posted something today in your Facebook group where you're getting agents certified to handle all of this that I thought was so amazing. I actually popped it into my team chat today because I just thought it was so valuable. I thought it was interesting, some of the comments that were on there that said something to the effect of, this is why some people might think that we're positioned for hourly work versus percentage of the deal work. And I think that this list, and if, I'm sure you'll share the list or people can just visit your Facebook group, is so thorough. And if you were to overlay this with competency and experience, that is a comprehensive package of what we do to earn our professional fee. And I can read just some of those off. I was just really impressed with this list that you put together, by the way. And some of these things, these are things that people don't think of, right?
Give me a few.
Show up early and prep for showings, right? This is work ethic, right? I don't think that somebody who's making $25 per door, right, is going to care enough to show up early and do deep preparation, right? And when a buyer sees their agent in action and they've been able to understand what an average agent does, like a go and show agent does, versus a full serve agent that has the depth of experience, that has the depth of problem solving, and that has been able to showcase some of those skills, they get it. Like within the first 2 rounds of showings, they absolutely get it.
That's impressive. Well, you related your performance to the fee that you believe you deserve to collect. Thank you. Sophie, some more?
Can I ask you how an agent would showcase specifically what they do? Because I think a lot of agents are struggling with that.
I think we need to take the time and produce case studies and proof pieces. I think we need to take the time to pull out the story and write it down and show how we helped 4 buyers last year buy homes that were off market and what we did to identify those off-market properties and what some of the deal terms were that were a win for our buyer, right? So packaging some of those stories, putting them in writing, and then presenting them before you launch into a professional relationship with somebody.
Storytelling. Got it.
Storytelling.
I really love that because I'm seeing on social media, as Scott has as well, and I'm sure you did, agents saying, if this changes and the seller doesn't want to pay me, I won't show houses. And I think they're all forgetting
that there are so many off-market houses that you really should be contacting that seller and opening that up to the buyer, and that is part of the job that you're doing as a buyer agent. So I love that you said that, so thank you.
That's great.
And perhaps building a resource of deep off-market resources can position you to increase your personal standard of what your professional fee is, because now you're offering a superior product or superior service than anyone else is in the market. So again, like opportunity instead of like this is crushing us all.
Right. And if nothing else, just the simplest fact is you got your clients the house. In a multiple offer situation, even if they are not the best terms, our offer was accepted. That's anecdotal, and it's really, really powerful.
Yeah. Look, I've worked with so many buyers. At the end of the day, buyers care about getting the home that is right for them. Once you're able to help them find the home that is the right one for them, and then win the home that is right for them, you have done like your most basic level of job. That is the agent that all buyers like are really looking for. And you have to demonstrate how you're going to navigate this. I think I heard a stat recently that something like only 1% of all homes that are actually available to buy are listed in the MLS.
What?
So most agents are literally waiting
1%.
for their buyers to tell them, hey, I want to go see this home that's listed in the MLS that I've seen on Zillow. Meanwhile, other buyer agents are deploying like a off-market campaign. They're door knocking, they're hitting the streets, they're working their sellers in waiting databases. They're doing a lot of work to match make any sellers that they may have previous conversations with. They're working their agent networks, their broker networks to find off-market opportunities. And I think right now, where interest rates the way that they are, I think that we are in a climate where there's probably more off-market opportunities that there have been historically.
Christine, I've not heard that stat. Where did you see that?
Yeah, so Sharon, our president of Real, he recently delivered buyer mastery in both Tennessee and in Dallas. And he's put something together that's really we're taking a look at called the seller universe. Okay. And he's done some deep research on that. And I trust our president of our company on his fact-finding stuff. So you should definitely check that out. He just did a buyer presentation yesterday that's available for the public to see, where he describes the seller universe.
That's awesome. I would love to see where he got that. That is a great stat to quote. I'd love to see where he got it from. So Scott, you have access to that.
No, I get the links. I get Sharon every day. It's like we're personal friends.
Yeah. And I work a lot of new construction, and I do feel like that stat kind of personally, because it's very hard to understand what's available to purchase for new construction. The builders are terrible about displaying that on their websites. And until you build a relationship with the builder, then you get the list of homes that are 12 months out. And you get the homes that just fell out of contract with a previous buyer and will be coming back to market. And I am able to present my buyers like with the full gamut of what's available for new construction versus the 2 or 3 that the builder chooses to put into the MLS.
I like it. Let's move. So Sophie, what's the next one?
Yes. So the next one is, prior to the proposed settlement, at what point did you send the contract to prospective buyers?
When did you
prior to?
Yes. Prior
not
to
always when we should, if I'm being honest. Okay. I think, being honest, we got comfortable in many situations and we sent it at time of writing offer. And we definitely are breaking old habits. We are now always sending it at time of buyer consultation prior to writing offer, because we can't have this conversation while we're writing an offer. This is all information we have to be transparent about before we write an offer, because it determines sometimes how we may be putting an offer together.
What
Okay.
type of opposition are you getting from buyers at the time that you're meeting them to have that signed? I'm sure that you're getting some sort of opposition or pushback.
No,
Great. Okay.
I mean, the pushback is, I'm not ready to buy yet. The opposition is not, I'm not willing to sign your compliance documents and your legal disclosures, right? Like those are not the pushback that we're getting.
So what I'm actually hearing is that if they're not a buyer that's motivated, that's the only time that you're really getting pushback, and that's okay. But if
that's amazing. That is so amazing, because now I know that I can spend time with buyers who need to find something to move into right now. Right?
Which is what you want. You want to work with that motivated buyer. So that actually works to everyone's benefit. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
And I call this the new economy of buyer agent compensation, because as Jay describes getting paid, so to speak, it's the delta, he says, the difference between X and Y. How are you or agents, do you think, prepared to get the whole 100% of the commission without assistance? There's going to be times when nothing's coming from the seller.
Well, in full transparency, only aside from investors, like we haven't collected a full delta yet. But I do think that we have some confidence because we have all collected partial deltas, and we all have also not had the conversation at the right time. And because we didn't disclose prior, we got stuck having to accept something that then what was less than our personal standard, right?
I got it.
We're role playing. We're doing lots and lots of role play, right? But I also realize that collecting the full delta for the current time being, this may look very different in 3 or 6 months, is kind of the last line of relief, right? There are several ways for us to solution and problem solve before we get there.
So you mentioned getting the full delta. That's between X and Y. What about the whole Megillah where there is no X? You got to get Y. Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Okay.
The whole thing is not something that we have yet collected with a traditional buyer.
That's funny, because I'm hearing that even the best, like yourself and others, it's kind of like the 4-minute mile by Roger Bannister. It hasn't happened yet, but that's going to be really the true litmus test, I think.
Yep, I completely agree.
We're going to have to revisit should these terms stay the same. Thank you. Sophie, any more? Keep going.
Yes. So the next one is, can you state how you prove your competency?
Did you mention that, or
I think that we talked about that a little bit earlier, right?
Okay.
With the full list of stuff, presenting value, and kind of overlaying that with experience and competency.
I like that.
Using proof stories, storytelling.
Got it.
Showing results from previous clients. And I think testimonials are very different than outlining the results, the linear process of how you got there.
Sure. That's for people, that's the most easily recognizable. You did 1, 2, 3 and led to 4. I like it. Sophie, next?
Yep.
Yes. So the next one is, do you have video conversations, or are they in person at the property or in your office?
Right now, we're about 50% Zoom consultations, and we're about 50% in-person consultations. Many, and I would say of our in-person consultations, about 70% of them are on the countertop at one of the showings that we show them on the first round.
Well, to be compliant, that'll have to change too, because they really don't, it's understood and agreed upon in the proposal that we would have an agreement before getting to the countertop.
That's awesome. I can't wait.
I know, that's good. That means everyone's got to play the right way. Okay, Soph, anything else, please?
Yes. Well, do you feel there will be refusals of prospective buyers under the new proposed settlement terms?
I think there will be confusion. I'm not sure outright refusal is the right word. And I think if there is refusal after we have presented what the service includes, for me, I think that is an indicator that this is not a right client for my offerings. And we can just mutually agree that we're not a good fit for each other, right? And I can release them into the realtor universe, and perhaps they can find some sort of a model or an agent that they are, can find some sort of mutually acceptable agreement on. I think that there's going to be much less refusal if you're able to articulate value and walk somebody through a process. I think we'll see more of just an inability. Like, some people may not have that much cash on hand to be able to cover their down payment, their closing cost, and professional fees. Some people have been planning a home purchase for, like 2 years and saving for that. And now, surprise, they have to add another X amount on top of that in cash reserves. I think there will be some challenges, but I think challenges are different than refusal.
Okay, now, before this proposed settlement was announced, I guess on the 15th, there was a lot of discussion, and people just kind of intuitively thought that a seller's concession, maybe different than a contribution, would include a buyer's agent's compensation. And that, I thought that too. I thought that was the go-to that people were bandying about. However, the settlement specifically prohibits that. Or the seller's concession cannot even affect that and touch that at all. So I think, do you have any other means, any other, I should say, maneuvers where you might be able to get other than the seller's concession?
So I think in a way that could be a good thing, right? Because most loan types have a cap on what seller concessions can be. So if I, as a buyer agent, could collect the cap on a seller concession to help with their closing cost, and then on a separate agreement between me and the seller, collect my professional fee, I think that probably looks like a bigger win. And a single compensation document is typically used if the right property for my buyer currently is like a for sale by owner, and the seller, wasn't publicly like advertising any kind of compensation. So I think that we probably should lean into the for sale by owner example as like the most relevant thing that we're used to, examples that we could lean on for that.
Is there a way to, let's say there is no compensation offer and your client either is incapable. What's the discussion like? What might you say to your client to see what can be done to keep you inside the deal?
Yeah, that's tough. I think, every agent is just going to have to make a call. I think with really good consultation and spending time with your buyer, you're going to be able to kind of know how real of a chance there is for that happening, and decide, one, not to take that buyer on at all, or two, and obviously you'd have to run this by attorney team to see if it's appropriate. Like, all of these ideas I have, I'm like, oh, I need to like message attorney, message my broker, see if this is something that will work. Perhaps we offer to not take a compensation in exchange for a promise that there are 2 referrals that are given within a certain period of time. And maybe be thinking about different ways of different type of consideration given to a buyer agent.
One thing Victoria and I were talking about is a really possible conflict. And when you think about this, where you're, as a fiduciary, you want the best deal for your clients, and that may include a lower price based on down payment and monthly payment obligations. So I would think that if I was representing a buyer, the best way to get compensation is to give full price or really advantageous terms, which might induce the seller to say, well, this is a great buyer. I mean, if I got to pay a commission, I'll definitely pay a commission. So do you think there's a possibility where a buyer's agent could actually betray their fiduciary duty to maybe, I don't want to use this, sell out the buyer and pay over asking, and then the seller loves you, and then you get whatever you want as a buyer's agent. I mean, there's that.
That's dicey, man.
It is.
That's tough. So one thing that I've been kind of thinking about that I'm like baking is, if there is a compensation agreement between buyer agent and seller, right? Why not include kind of like a cover letter, proof stats, that working with a buyer agent that has a great track record of success, like selling certainty, right? Rather than terms, rather than highest net, is the more compelling way to go.
Mm-hmm. So basically, who you're working with,
Exactly.
or maybe a real strong
you can
appreciation,
work with,
respect for each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Well, that kind of happens anyway. If you bring an offer, I know it's coming for Christine. It's not some joker. I know it's real, and that's.
But currently, sellers would have no idea if I'm a fly-by night or if I'm legitimate, right?
But your listing agent would. Their listing agent would.
Their listing agent may be somebody who's only sold 2 homes a year. Like, we just don't know.
Huh. Okay.
I mean, right now we do put together like a very strategic offer package to really help sell the deal with certainty and things put together in a very tight, clean, professional way. And I am kind of imagining some other version of that also goes directly to the seller with, if there is a document that outlines my compensation directly with them.
Mm-hmm. I think there's going to be a trend for buyers' offers to get much, much better because they will be urged that's the way to get their offer accepted. But there could be a bit of a dichotomy where buying agents are really, not even in a bad way, but justifying their existence by bringing the best possible offer to the seller. So that's something to watch out for.
It is, for sure.
So. There's also the love letters that are violative of fair housing, where people are really trying to position themselves and make themselves attractive, in addition to the dollars and cents and the terms. Gotta watch out. So, Sophie, some more, please.
Yes. So the next one is, how do you ask listing agents for the sellers to pay your fee?
We just did that a little bit. Can you?
I think we kind of.
Yeah, we just did that.
We've kind of talked about that a lot, right?
We did. We did that, right? Okay. We're smart. We're doing them before the questions even come out. Right? Okay, so but you got more?
Yes, I have 2 more. So next one is, how do you ask listing agents to request closing costs for the buyer clients?
I think we did that, right?
I think
closing costs?
How do we currently ask for closing cost? In Florida, the way that I see it done most of the time is in the additional terms on the purchase contract or through an addendum.
Right, that makes sense. And then
I have heard, and I think maybe this is where the question was going. Like, I have always been taught that the purchase contract is an agreement solely between the buyer and the seller. And Mr. Attorney Scott, love for you to confirm or deny that.
Yeah, that's definitely,
and putting our
privity.
commission, like negotiating our commission and putting it on the purchase contract, from what I've been taught, is a no-no. It needs to be a separate document.
Well, really, of course. To me, it's A to B, B to C. That's the notion of privity. You have no relationship in that deal. You have yours and they have theirs. It makes sense, and that's when things get muddled.
But a lot of agents have not been taught that, and I think that is going to be the first instinctual way that they handle that.
Right, they're going to throw it in the pot, and the title company will sort it out.
The purchase contract. Yep, and something in Florida that title companies currently do not require is a document from buyer agent be submitted to title showing what buyer agent compensation is. Other states, I know they're super stickler on that, and I'm so excited for that to happen.
I can tell you in New York that doesn't happen either, unless it comes out at the end in the CD. So now the question for some of our banking friends might be, if there's a private agreement and it's no longer finance and it's no longer between the parties, does that even appear on the CD any longer? I don't know.
That is a
And
great
I hear that
question.
noise. Where's noise? And I hear noise.
Right?
And then also, did the lenders even think of that with you're in the truth in lending, and maybe if you're really marginal on the debt to income, it might be, whoa, you can't buy a boat, but you can pay a realtor.
Right. Oh man. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's something that's going to come up
Yeah.
at the end, because I mean, I wonder, I guess loan applicants are going to have to disclose that they entered into that type of agreement, which is of a substantial cost.
Yeah. One thing that I'm kind of concerned about is lenders artificially giving green light on situations that are not a go. Like, I think now more than ever, buyer agent and lender need to be almost crafting these offers together and make sure that they're absolutely on board with all contingency expiration dates. Because if lender thinks that, certain costs can just be wrapped into the deal, and then we're past due diligence period and they technically can't, like, heaven forbid, multiple offer situation, and we have large EMD on the line, like that's a really terrible situation.
Right, and every bank's different. Based on the down payment, there may be 3% down allowed, 3% credit offered, 5%. FHA, I think, is 6%. So you never know. It seemed that there would be some type of agreement where, hey, listen, buyer will pay his own broker, and there will be a seller's concession as to the costs. So you could relieve the buyer of the costs, which could be even picking up taxes. It could be all the title insurance premiums, origination costs. So that could be done. That could be paid for, but they're paying the brokers on your own. So and then you as a top flight practitioner, I don't know if sellers are going to want to go through all these little maneuvers and steps. They may just want to pick somebody who's just doesn't require any of those things. Whose noise is that?
Sorry, I think that's a truck outside.
Oh, okay. I thought it was, as long as it's not you in the truck. So that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
They may not work out.
Can be tough.
Well, we also have to remember, though, that the way we did business in the past, the commission was always built into the seller's agreement. So we didn't have to separate that in the CD, because it was already built in. But now, if you're building that in, it would have to be in there. I think you're going to see a second wave of changes that will come down, because a lot of agents are not preparing for the changes that are about to come. And they're going to try to do things that may end up being violative. So I think somebody like Christine, who is doing this with buyers, is definitely going to be way ahead of the game on the buy side. But as a listing agent, if she's listing, she's also going to have her antenna up saying, wait a minute, what's going on here? And
like, I know that your lender,
buyer agents.
100%. I know that your lender is going to blow up this structure 3 weeks in and calling out what we can and what we can't do to structure it. And we're all running this race together, right? Like, there are a lot of things that I haven't even encountered with what the new frontier of this will look like. And I mean, even like the greatest real estate agents were not great accountants, right? And a lot of this is kind of like an accounting type mindset, restructuring where the credits and the debits and the rearrangement of fees go. So I think that we really need to lean on professionals in the industry that are much smarter than us, that can give us like physical, viewable examples of how to fill out documents and how this should be. And perhaps, maybe there's even some extra layers of compliance in place to make sure that all of this new creative deal structuring that's about to go on, like, is actually compliant before we're fully executed.
And one more thing about
this is also I'm sorry. This is also a very good opportunity for agents like yourself that are out there using this time as a runway to practice, because when the changes come down, you are positioned perfectly, while everyone else will be trying to play catch up. Would you agree with that?
I appreciate that you say that, but I I'm not like really looking at myself like I'm so far ahead of everyone else in this.
Christine's
I
too
just
modest.
want to be
Yes.
like
Too
doing
modest.
things the right way. And if I can just share with anybody something that worked for me or something that was a fail and don't do this, like I'm happy to. But I think that there are enough of us that like have been exposed to better things and had the opportunity to stand on the shoulders of some great giants that we can kind of like help everybody else out. But you have to
I
be willing and
definitely
coachable.
agree. I definitely agree with what you're saying, but for the most part, if you're on social media, and I know that you say you try to avoid it, the masses
bad.
are not doing what you're doing. That's why Scott is saying you're
I
being
know.
very modest. You know, you really are in the forefront because you are taking this opportunity to practice and use this time as a runway to make sure that you are fully prepared when the changes do come down.
Mhm.
Well, in the current climate of real estate, very often I'm still coaching the other agent on the other side of the deal on what's allowed and what's not. So I can only imagine the level of that as we get deep into the change.
Well, one thing I'm watching, I'm annoyed by, is this reliance on the seller's concession. Because before, as I said, before the settlement, it was understood that the commission would be baked in. That just was a foregone conclusion because it could. Now we know it can't. However, in all my business as a lawyer, bank attorney, broker, title company, a seller's concession is a hope. It's a dream. It's a aspirational, which means the contract in New York says that the house is 300,000. Whatever the seller's concession amount becomes, that's great, and we are going along with whatever loan to value you borrow. But if it fails, you're still responsible for the initial purchase price. So there was this, and it was very clear and they understood that we're going for this. But if there's a bad appraisal from someone from far away who doesn't get it, and maybe the appraisal's right. Who's to say the price is right? Maybe the appraised value is the correct number. So now what happens when someone is relying on it? I don't know if clients are getting the right exposure and I don't know what's going to happen. I think people are allowing a third party in the deal, and there's a buyer and a seller, and then the appraiser comes in and says, the price is this. I mean, the real fact is that when a house comes in undervalued, the loan is declined for insufficient collateral. So no one's even talking about that fact.
Yeah. Appraisal shortfalls are definitely going to be a challenge in the new frontier of this. And we're just going to have to like solution workshop on a case-by-case scenario.
Right.
And I think, unfortunately, it will mean some really great deals like falling apart. At the end of the day, a buyer wants to buy, a seller wants to sell. Many times when you get far enough into the transaction and everybody's like super invested, everybody has planned their next stage of life, buyers and sellers, they start to make different types of concessions that they maybe wouldn't have been open to at the very beginning of the transaction.
I think the responsibility is going to really fall on the listing agent now to say, look, Mr. Client Seller, we're going to give this guy's seller's concession, but we're picking the person who's really, really capable. We don't want him to live and die on this concession. If he's got really super qualifications, that's the person we want, because we don't want to hang on. Some stranger comes on at 9 a.m. and we're given bad news.
Yep. Selling certainty. 100%.
And there's some dirty words. I mean, I won't really say them, but there's the D word and the E word, which is the default. When someone says, I'll sign anything Christine puts in front of me, whatever percent. Yeah, I love that house. Yeah. And then that's defaulting. And then the enforcement. And I would even want to talk about that with our own company or companies like ours. So what's going to happen when people with great intentions sign a buyer agency agreement, or I call a compensation contract, and then they don't perform. They just don't have it, or they tuition and doctor's bills, they don't have it. Or they're nefarious and want to abuse the system and never intended to pay.
Yeah. That's tough. That is really tough. I mean, I guess a buyer agent could ask for proof of funds. We're asking for proof of funds anyway, right? As a buyer agent, we should be breaking down all of the financials. Obviously, they need to confirm all of that with the lender, but really having a clear baseline of where everything falls. And with proof of funds, right, and a solid pre-qual, we should be able to have better discernment if the buyer can actually perform on coming in with the full, I forget what you called it, not the Delta, but the Wazoo or whatever.
Big Megillah, like the Megillah
The big
Gorilla.
Megillah.
Right.
There we go. If they do have to come in with the Megillah Gorilla. So
Well, let me break that down. I'm a pain when it comes to this. In the case of the proof of funds, well, we both know that could be changed on your app in a minute after they show you that. That's one. And there's really no penalty and it's a small amount of money, and there's no penalty for defaulting with the realtor. On the bank, on the purchase deal, there's a huge penalty. You can lose, as you call it, earnest money deposit. I call it down payment. You could stand to lose that, and it's a lot of money and so many moving parts with banks and title, and you'll be afraid of all the consequences, right, and repercussions, and you won't get the house. So to me, there's no risk when you stiff the realtor, and there's complete risk when you don't perform in the contract. So there are those, that's going to happen.
Yep. I mean, so another level that a buyer agent could go through is insisting on a pre-underwritten qualification letter from the lender that has gone a little bit deeper, where the lender has truly verified how much money they have in the bank, truly verified their income and their assets, and not just done the like superficial pre-qualification. In a underwritten pre-qualification, if you put that in front of a seller and they have a good listing agent that can explain what that means, a pre-underwritten buyer can typically close in like 2.5 to 3 weeks. That is selling certainty.
Well, Victoria and I had a conversation once. Could a realtor be morally bereft if, let's say, they have buyer number one who's not very well heeled and just going to squeak into the a purchase no matter where, and you have another one who's liquid, this really, they sold a house, they sold a business. Which buyer would you pick? The richer one? Would you ignore the less liquid buyer because one is more able to buy and one pay you and the other one can't? I mean, we're going to have steering of your own type where you're going to pick the better buyer.
In the existing climate, sellers pick offers for all of their own reasons and none of our own, right? Sometimes sellers pick the highest netting offer, and sometimes they do not. So the highest netting offer is not always the winning offer.
Certainty, as you say. I got it. And the E word is that of enforcement, where if someone does default, we both know that in any company, on any split, I mean, an individual realtor can't sue. It's got to be the broker. It's the broker's deal. Have you ever heard, we don't want that publicity. We don't want that negative. So the first question is, do brokers sue for their agent's compensation? And then where's the incentive when someone caps, or you're at 95 and on a $20,000 commission? Is your broker or any broker going to sue for $1,000?
Yeah.
Or no money, right?
I would venture to say probably not. Right. It will be interesting to see how broker support levels up in the way of this, right? I do think that brokers getting involved a little bit more when things do escalate, just having those stern conversations with buyers and reminding them what the buyer broker agreement outlines will help recover some of those losses. But, I don't think that we'll see like a full recovery of that type of a situation. I have had a couple of instances where I have been procuring cause. Could I really have gone after the buyer? Sure. I had all of the grounds to do so. But when I personally evaluate how much mental drag that is on me and how much it takes away from the rest of my business, the rest of the clients that I have to service, I have typically chosen not to do so.
Mhm.
And with every one of those experiences, there is a personal and professional learning that comes out of that on how to structure your business a little bit better and just implement better communication.
But let's compare the two. Procuring cause is a question of fact, which could be heard by an arbiter of some
Sure.
sort,
Yep.
a trier, right? And that's a possibility. But there's no question about you representing the Smiths. They come to
True.
closing. There is a
That is
contract.
true.
So we don't have an arbiter except a court of law. And you know, I know that our trainer, our superstar Jay Macklin, has in his independent contract agreement, I will sue if it's 18 cents. So come here. And I think that's going to be a thing where people are looking for the broker that will support them. I mean, think about it. It's safety.
I think that's amazing. Absolutely. But as a broker, there's two sides of that coin, right? If I'm a broker, I want to make sure that my agents that are working with buyers are highly skilled, highly trained, actually presenting all of the transparency pieces the way that they're supposed to. Because if none of that happened, and then you're asking your broker to have your back.
We got silent. I just lost Christine. Uh-oh. Can anyone else hear me? Christine went. Oh,
I can
Christine's
hear you.
back.
She'll come back. She'll come back.
Okay. Are you back, Christine?
My mic's muted for some reason.
Okay, it's all right. Maybe you had something. Maybe you were saying something wrong and it just muted on purpose. I don't know.
No, I was just saying that on kind of the flip side of that, brokers will, really probably want to make sure that all of their agents that are working with buyers are properly trained and really presenting the transparency pieces and walking them through the right process if they're willing to totally have their back like that. Because if their agents aren't, it is hard to have your back when your agents haven't been following like the process to success to start with.
And all these questions that we're asking, the industry's asking each other through the media or speaking to each other, I think they're a good thing, because this is the price of open market. And there was not this level of confusion, tragically, under a collusive scene. I don't know where you stand on the suit, but I'm a firm believer in the liability that was established and acknowledged. And it seemed far more certain when you do things in a controlled fashion. Now that there's this complete disconnect, I'm interested in seeing all this confusion, even some anger. We're wondering, Warren Buffett says, when the tide goes out, now you see who was swimming naked. And people did not have bathing suits on, and now they have to wear them.
Yeah, I'm weird. I thrive with structure and rules. I love it. I know I'm atypical of the industry who thrives in chaos. So,
Victoria, you love that one? They thrive in chaos. Right. It's true. I've seen it. It's a personality, but it's a little bit of, the personality type that goes with being so successful. But I think, unless you have something else to add, I think that's fantastic, the insight and the perspective. And that's why I see you as a chief contributor to anything we're putting out, to offer certification agents, have them become more capable to actually be compensated in this new economy.
Yep. And Scott, I love everything that you're putting out. I think that you are doing such a service to the industry. I look at every single post that goes up on your page. And
Thank you.
The thing I love most is that it is a healthy and productive conversation.
Yeah. And Victoria inspired me. She's someone who really helped me early in my career. What I really want to do is, unfortunately, I'm not looking for friends. I have a lot of great friends. I'm looking to pose challenges. And we're not going to deride anyone or insult anyone, but I do want to challenge the former way of thinking. And there's so much going on. There's things coming up in May and thereafter. I think if you have the wrong mindset, there's no way to survive. Thank you for saying that.
I completely agree.
Yeah, and I think that we're really promoting the truth. We're bringing facts to the forefront, where a lot of other people are not doing that, and that's really troubling to the industry. But people like you and there's many people out there that really do get it. they're operating properly, they're getting the training that's needed, they're looking at the facts. Those are the ones that are going to survive, and they will thrive, and that will make our industry a much better place, and it'll be easier to do business in the future. I actually welcome all these changes. I don't see this as a problem.
I don't
As
see how
do
a
I.
fiduciary couldn't want this, because you're opening the curtain, you're drawing back the curtain and letting clients see what you can do. And I think it's you who said, why would we have anyone outside ourselves determine your income? I mean, that's it's like you've heard of some top doctor coming from a different nation and they can't earn what they're justifiably should. So that's exciting. But thank you.
Thank you
Great
guys
stuff.
so much. I
Talk very
appreciate
soon.
you. Thank you.
Appreciate you more. Take care.